Hey, how you doing? Welcome to another time here. Welcome to another time at the book club. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. We've been looking at a book, our night book in the series, The Confidence Game. That's what we're on right now, and we presently in chapter 4 of the book, and we're looking at the rope. How a con person, you know, buries or fully integrates the victim into the scheme, the con scheme, and really they do that by persuasion, which is really the opposite of negotiation, but what we've been looking at last two times here as we build into chapter 4, is the positive side of it, which is negotiation. We can look at negotiation first of all, then we look at the act of persuasion, that the con man goes into. Negotiation is a positive part of it. Then we'll look at how the con person, abuses some of the principles of negotiation to con people. But here we're looking at negotiation, which is really an act of life. We negotiate every day, and it's negotiations are meant to end in a win-win scenario. But when it's abused, then it becomes persuasion. It becomes a win-lose or lose-win, uh, or one where there's a lose-lose, So, but we'll be looking at negotiations. That's what we're looking at the last two times, and that's what we're going to look at today. If we don't finish it today, we'll continue next week. And to help us with looking at negotiation, as a topic, we did bring in our book here, Getting More by Stuart Diamond. So that's been helping us look at negotiation holistically. You know, I'm reading it alongside. I'm right now in chapter 8 of the book, which makes the fifth book we're reading in order to get through our book here, The Confidence Game. To help us with learning more about the confidence game, we've been looking at three other books, The Art of a Con, the big con, and the Mac Insight, right? And now, just to get through negotiation as a topic here in chapter 4, we're having a fifth book, which is Getting More by Stuart Diamond, you know, and we're probably still going to get more books to read here in chapter 4 as we move on from negotiation to talk about persuasion. They're not exactly the same thing. Negotiation involves two people, trying to get the best out, trying to get a non-zero sum game outcome from their discussion or from their time together. When it comes to persuasion, it's a zero sum game. Someone is trying to get the most, if not everything, from the table at the expense of the other person, right? But let's continue with negotiation here. And I'm gonna last time I didn't use my slide. I'm gonna try doing that again this week. I'm trying to get off using slide. I think it's a better engagement, than the distraction of a slide. So every time I can get away without using the slide, I'm gonna try to do that. You know, so we're looking at negotiation philosophy, and we've looked at five philosophies of negotiation so far. The first one was said is there's a need, to analyze the problem to know the reason for the engagement. When it comes to negotiation, it involves three things. It involves people, it involves a problem they are trying to solve, and they need to have a process by which they solve the problem. So one of the things we need to do is understand the problem. If you don't understand the problem, you cannot engage. And part of understanding the problem is preparation. You need to prepare before you go for the negotiation. You don't just go to a negotiation, you prepare, you get your facts and heart together before you go to engage. When it comes to a con game, the con person, the grifter, the con person, is hoping that you're not prepared. They are prepared. They do their homework. They are prepared, but they're hoping you are not prepared so they can have one against you. They can catch you, in an emotional state where you're not rational, and they can get you, in a place where you're not prepared to make decisions you've not done your due diligence on. When you're not prepared, you tend to go down what we call the what's that word for it? Uh Something tunnel. What's the word? When it comes to me. But when you're not prepared, you go down a particular track. The first thing you link up to, you go down that track, and it's just same way about when people get scared, when people are acting out of fear. When you're acting out of fear, you go down the something tall else not coming to me right now, but you go down a particular track. The first thing you tie into, whether it's rational, not rational, but for you, something you're holding on to, and you seem to justify it going down that track. So that's the intent, the benefit of preparing is that you've done your homework. You build some kind of mental model as to how you want to act. You've done your checks, even though reality might not be exactly as you saw it when you were preparing, but it's easier for you to adjust when you already have a plan, than when you don't have a plan at all. If you don't have a plan at all, you're just going to be relying on your emotions, not facts, just your emotion, and that can get you into trouble. When we're talking about that, I did relate two examples that in the book of two incidents in the airplane industry, aviation industry. One incident where it was a minor fault in the plane, but the pilot did not prepare as to what he would do, in such circumstance. So he just went down the what we call the tunnel vision. Yeah, tunnel vision, that's the word. He just clicked onto the first thing that came to his mind, and he began to go down that tunnel vision. And it was the wrong thing. It made a simple thing become a disaster, and people died. There is another incident where the pilot, reminded himself of all the drills that they've gone through as to what to do when such a thing occurs, and he followed the mental model he had practiced. He had exercised prow, to that incident, and he followed the instruction that was in his head that he had already practiced several times. It was a major fault to the plane, but because he followed the mental model that was already he had already prepared, he has been prepared for, no one died in that incident, only minor injuries, but people didn't die. Everybody came out unhurt. And those two just tells us the importance of preparing, right? When you're prepared for an eventuality, or an incident, it helps you to be able to manage fright. Right, your the mental models that you have practiced, you have rehearsed, and you have begin to follow in an emergency situation helps you to be rational rather than doing things out of emotion, out of fear, and going down a tunnel vision, whereby you might be hanging on to the wrong thing and making a seemingly small thing, worse. Right. So it is important to prepare. It takes away, it makes you rational in a crisis. Then number three, we talked about the importance of active listening. If you don't listen, you will not get the core of the message of the call, what's going on. We related Sun Tzu's principle, which says that if you don't know yourself, if you don't know yourself, yeah, you're gonna win some battles, lose some battles. If you don't know yourself, and the enemy, you're most probably going to lose in a battle. If you know yourself, don't know the enemy, you win some, lose some. If you know the enemy, don't know yourself, you win some, lose some. But to be guaranteed most of the time to win, you need to know yourself and know the person you are relating with, and that's the importance of listening, because when someone talks, they tell you the eating motive, eating intent in their heart. And when you know the intent, then you're able to relate better. Right. So listening is important. It's your detective tool when you are negotiating with someone. There's also emotional control because when you're emotional, you're not rational. Emotion and rationality don't go together. The higher the emotion, the less the rationality. The higher the emotion, the more irrational a person is. The more the less the emotion, the more rational a person is. They just don't work together. Rational and emotions don't go in the same direction. So you need to be able to control your emotion. And Jokeling will talk about extreme ownership. You need to hone not just your own emotion in a negotiation, you need to hone the emotion of the person you are negotiating with. You need to do things that will not make them to be emotional. You need to do things that will keep them unemotional and more rational if you want to get the best out of the negotiation. So we need to be able to control not just your own emotion, but the emotion of those in the room also. That's important. Then number five, we last time we talked together, we talked about the verbal communication. You need to be clear. Just as much as you're actively listening to the person you're negotiating with, and by that you're able to pick their intent, their motive, their worry, what they want to get out of a negotiation. You also need to be able to sell what you want to get out of the negotiation to the person you're negotiating with, and that comes from your communication. They need to know who you are, what you are, your intent, your motive, where you're going, what you're trying to get from a negotiation, and the fact that you want the best for them also, that you're looking for a win-win. You're not trying to con them also. You must be transparent. And the way you can be transparent comes in your communication, right? You know your intent. You can only communicate that by the way you talk, what you say, and your body language also. So today we're going to go to the sixth one, and this is a total of 10. So we're midway going to the sixth one, and it's collaboration and teamwork, right? When I'm negotiating, it's all about collaboration. It's not about me, it's not about them, it's about two of us, right? Collaboration would say, it involves a win-win strategy. You need to focus on building trust with the person that you're collaborating with or negotiating with. You need to be transparent. You need to look at the long-term relationship. It's not just a short-term relationship. After this negotiation is done, yeah, and they look back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, will they hate you, or would they want to do another business with you, another negotiation with you? So it's about not just a short-term immediate relationship, but a long-term relationship. So that is important. If in negotiation, it's collaboration, teamwork. You're both working for each other's good, right? So you're trying to solve a problem. You're not competing with the person that you're negotiating with. Both of you are trying to solve a problem and get the best outcome from the negotiation, right? So collaboration would say is a process of two or more people. When you collaborate with somebody, it's two or more people, or teams or organizations working together to achieve a common goal. They are working together to achieve a common goal. It's not as if one is trying to, it's a common goal, right? And the common goal is at the end of the day such that everybody wins, right? Now that one is winning, one is going back sad. When you collaborate, you're achieving a common goal, share knowledge and create value, right? You're creating value for both of you, right? So uh so collaboration involves effective communication, shared responsibility, and combined expertise to improve productivity and innovation, right? You're trying to improve productivity and innovation. When there is no common goal, is you it's difficult to negotiate, but that's why when it comes to negotiation, it's about people, the problem, and the process. We need to define the problem, clearly define the problem, such that everybody is a winner at the end of the day, right? If nothing else, that's a common goal, that everybody leaves happy, right, from the negotiation, right? So key aspects, of collaboration and teamwork includes a need to focus on the interest, not position, right? It's not my position or your position. What is our interest? What will what will we leave here, you know, uh, to be, to have been benefited by, right? Not our ego, but what is our interest in this negotiation that we're going into, and making sure that those interests are met, right? There has to be trust, there has to be transparency. It has to be joint problem solving, not you solving the problem different from the way I am solving it, but we're both trying to solve a problem and get the best from what we have to share or to take away, and we want to preserve our relationship. When you're negotiating with someone, you want to keep the relationship. You don't want to negotiate for the sake of today and forget about it tomorrow. But when you're negotiating, you're not trying to create enemy. You're trying to create a friend, right? A con person does not negotiate. They persuade. They are trying to get a position and they couldn't be bothered about the relationship. It's about getting what they want now. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Let's just get what we want now and move forward. That's what a con person would do. So the seventh of the philosophies, or skills, the real word here is skills for negotiation. The seventh one is problem solving. You have to be able to solve problem, because negotiation is trying to solve a problem. Again, we'll say in a negotiation, there are people or organizations, and there is a problem to be solved and the process of solving it, right? Negotiation is pretty much a process of solving it. And so we need to be able to solve the problem. So problem solving is essentially a learnable process of identifying what the challenge is, determining what's the root cause of the issue, and implementing effective solutions. So we determine what the root cause is, is a real problem here, not the symptoms. We're not trying to address the symptoms, we're trying to address the root cause of the issue, and we implement effective solutions to it, such that everybody's happy at the end of the day. So key steps in problem solving include: you have to define the issue, you have to break it into smaller parts, we brainstorm on how to solve it, we analyze options to it, and we take actions on what the options are. Core strategies involved using the five whys for root cause analysis, where we're asking why this, why this, why this. Hopefully will get us to the root cause, not just the symptoms. And we could utilize also the SWOT analysis, understanding the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we can use that to compare the options we come up with, and we can then break this up into effective solutions in moving forward, right? Um, so problem solving focuses really on collaborative, integrated strategies to expand the pie and meet underlying interest. So we're trying to solve a problem, and it's all about making what is available, big enough that everybody can get a share from it and be happy. It's not a zero-sum game where everybody's what is available is scarce and everybody just trying to get their own, fighting to make sure they get. No, at the end of the day, everybody will get something. That's all part of problem solving, creating enough, for that everybody gets a fair share that they're happy with at the end of the day. So the eighth skill in problem solving is decision making ability to make decisions. not being able to make a decision really could stall anything in life, including negotiations. So that's why typically you need people on ground who can make decisions, when you're negotiating, not people that will just hold on to one thing. And that happens in some of our meetings where, especially here in Africa, where the person that holds the decision is not in the room. And people in the room are pretty much leaning to whatever they've been told before coming to the meeting. And really, they're not negotiating. They're only just holding on to the position or the mandate they've been given, before coming to the room you know but you need to be able to make decisions. Even if you've been given a mandate, you need to make that mandate clear enough in the room. And if that mandate is not enough, know when to go back to renegotiate the mandate that been given. So decision making, it's an important skill, in negotiating, so otherwise you'll be stalled, because the people will not be able to either know when to stop, when to agree, disagree, and the thought to be useless if you can't make decisions. All right. So people in negotiations are able to evaluate the information that's given to them. They're able to manage their emotions, right? Again, we say the more the emotions, the less rational a person is. So they're able to manage their emotions in such a way that they can be rational, about the things being discussed. So they use structured frameworks to make sound choices, such as they need to define the problem, identify alternatives, and they can leverage, the best alternative to achieve favorable and sustainable outcomes, right? So that's all part of decision making. So decision making is a cognitive process of selecting a course of action from multiple alternatives to solve a problem or achieve a goal, right? You're able to select a course of action from different options. So it involves evaluating the information that you have, weighing the risk, and considering the consequence of each option. You consider the consequence of each option, and you then pick the one that is best, for everyone. So effective decision making combines rational analysis with emotional intelligence and creative thinking. That means you're able to regulate your emotions enough to be able to keep you rational. And also you regulate the emotion of the other party also, just so that everybody can make a rational decision, from the negotiation. Number nine, in terms of the skills, for effective negotiation, includes interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills is so or what we call people skills or soft skills. I just skills around behaving, relating with other people. They are the behaviors, communication abilities, and personality traits used to interact effectively and build relations with others. And this is very important. This is very important in the workplace. It's not about what you know. It's not about what you can do. It's about how you can do it with other people. That is rated above every other one. That's why emotional intelligence today is loud, in the business world, because it's important that you can work with other people. If you want to make it anywhere in the marketplace, you need to be able to work with other people. So you need the soft skills, being able to relate with people above you, your peers, and people below you, So soft skills include ability to listen, active listening, empathy, teamwork, conflict management, adaptability, rapport building, and clear communication. All of those are important, if you want to negotiate. If you're in the same room trying to negotiate with people, you must be able to relate to them. That's what I do. I come into a room to negotiate with people I respect. I respect the humanity in the people I'm negotiating with. And that's always worked for me. Once you respect people, they're willing to listen to you. But when you treat them as tools, or people lower than you, or people that you are better than, Yeah, you're gonna have a stalemate. You're not gonna get that negotiation through because they're not gonna listen to you. But when you treat people as fellow human beings, it takes away the barrier and they're more receptive to what you have to say. Right? That's worked for me in big, big negotiations, and we're talking about a lot of money. Easy to get the approval when you treat the other people in the room as humans, like you are, right? Um, so soft skills are essentially for separating people from the problem. You treat people like fellow human beings, and they're going to treat you the same way, and the problem is not going to stand between you. So these skills allow negotiators to understand the other party's interest, manage emotions, build trust, facilitating better long-term relationship and ultimately more successful outcome. So it is important to have people skills, soft skills if you're going to negotiate, all right? And the last of the 10 effective negotiation skills is what we call ethics and reliability. You and that goes in line with trust also. So the ethical standards and reliability involve honesty, fairness, integrity to build trust and long-term value rather than relying on deception or manipulation for short-term gain, right? Yeah, it's not about the short term, it's about the long term. You don't deceive the person you're negotiating with. If later they find out you deceived them, yeah, so they're going to be looking for a way to get back at you, right? And I've been in there, and one time I wasn't promoted, and I went to ask the rank and file, and they all saying things that didn't make sense, and that's how I've seen them the last, how many years is that? 20 years. The last 20 years, I've just pretty much put them aside. Not 2020, last 26 years, 26 years, and I've just seen them as people that had lack integrity, but that's important. Ethical negotiators prioritize transparency, respect, and mutual beneficial outcome. That's important. You want to be friend for life. You don't want someone to look back, whether today or later on when they grow up and say, oh, this man cheated me when I didn't know much. This man did not respect our long-term relationship. He abused what he had against me. He knew more, so he abused his knowledge in our time together. I get to negotiate in different spheres, with government officials. Um, Today I do it with our contractors and all of that, and I do it in a way that it's long term. 10 years from now, nobody's going to wake up. Oh, I woke up from that slumber. Oh, he cheated me or something like that. Now I'm not a con person. Negotiations are done for long-term relationship that someone tomorrow will not say, you had one against that because of your advantage, because they were less than you or had less experience than you. It's got to be a fair game, right? And in trying to close this talk on negotiation, we're going to look at 10 tips for successful negotiation. We looked at the skills. We're going to look at 10 tips here, for successful negotiation. And the first of them, it says, don't be afraid to ask for what you want. When you go to a negotiation, don't be afraid to ask for what you want. If you don't ask, don't blame the other person for not giving you. If there's something you want from a negotiation, ask it. Don't be afraid. The worst anybody can do to you is tell you no, right? No. If they tell you no, so be it. At least you asked, right? Don't be afraid to ask for what you want, right? If they say no, at least you asked. They're not going to kill you because you asked. And if they kill you, that's their loss. But when you go into a negotiation, don't be afraid to ask for what you want, because if you don't ask, you cannot blame them for not giving you because you did not ask. The ancient wisdom is ask and you shall be given. So when you're in the room and there's something that you want, ask for it. The worst that can happen is they will say no. Even if they say no, at least they've heard you. Who knows, they might reconsider their stance. But if you never asked, you don't blame them if they don't give it to you because you did not ask, right? Ancient wisdom is ask and you shall be given. In a place where you're negotiating, that's why you need to do your homework. You need to ask yourself, what do I want? And if it's something you really want that will make a difference for you coming out of that negotiation, ask, right? So successful negotiators are assertive and challenge everything. They know that everything is negotiable, right? This is negotiation consciousness. Everything is negotiable. It is what makes a difference between negotiators and everybody else, right? Acts, right? So when you go to meet a con and you're supposedly trying to negotiate, really they are trying to persuade you because you've not done your homework. You don't know what to even ask, right? But they are prepared and they're going to push everything at you all to get you to sign the dotted line, right? But even when such a thing catches you unawares, if there's something that is in your mind that's important to you, ask the question, right? Don't go regretting later on, right? So being assertive means asking for what you want and refusing to take no for an answer, right? Uh, well, using the word refusing to say no might not be the right word, but ask, right? It's up to you if it's something you can negotiate for, right? That's really what this is saying. If it's something that's negotiable, ask if there's something they can give you to replace that. It's up to you to consider it, right? But don't dig your foot in unnecessarily in a negotiation. You must know the things you're willing to give and the things you're not willing to give, right? If it's something you're willing to give, just make sure you get value for it. If it's something that you're not willing to give, then you can say don't take no for an answer, right? So there's a difference between being assertive and being aggressive. Just don't be aggressive, but be assertive. Say it the way, say it a way that say it, not as someone that doesn't mean it. At the same time, don't say it in a way that is offensive, right? So what here we're talking about is being assertive, not being aggressive, right? You are assertive when you take care of your own interest while maintaining respect for the interest of others, right? So we maintain respect for the interest of others, but we still say what we want, right? And challenge means not taking things at face value, all right? You have the right to question every and anything. You cannot negotiate unless you're willing to challenge the validity of the opposing position. So you need to challenge their validity, ask questions, get understanding, but don't be afraid to ask what you want. And don't be afraid to seek clarity, where clarity is needed, right? Also, when you're negotiating, another tip that works for successful negotiation is your listening skill, which again is the first law of the con man, right? Even though we're talking about negotiation here, you need to shut up and listen. Don't just talk. In a negotiation, it's more important for you to listen than for you to talk, because your talk is as effective as your listening. Because when you listen, then you know where to talk, what to talk to and what not to talk to. Because when you're talking, you might talk yourself out of a good position, right? But if you're listening, you can talk yourself into a good position, right? Because you understand the other side and you're able to then use what you understand to get what you want. Right. So it's important to listen. Right. Negotiating is not about talking, it's about listening. Because sometimes what you want, the opposing side is willing to give you without you even arguing about it. Something that they already brought to the table to give you, if only you listen to them. Right. So remember the first law of the Ten Commandments of the command, which says, be patient, be a patient listener, right? Be a patient listener. It is this not fast talking, that gets a con man his schools, right? Listen, because when you listen, you understand the other side. So negotiators are detectives. They ask probing questions and then shut up and listen. They ask probing questions to understand where the other side is standing and use what they understand to get what they're looking for. So it's the same way, tying again with Sun Tzu's Art of War. It says to win in every war, which here we're talking about. The war here can be paralleled or analogous here to negotiation. You need not to not only know yourself, but also know your enemy or the other side, right? Enemy here is analogous to the other side of the table in a negotiation. You need to listen and understand them. When you understand them, then you can use what you understand, to get to solve the problem on the table, right? So follow the 70-30 rule. Listen 70% of the time, and talk only 30% of the time, right? If you listen 70% of the time and talk only 30% of the time, it will get you home, right? So the third tip, for having a successful negotiation is to do your homework. Just like we've talked about in the skill is doing preparation, right? If you do your homework, it will help you, to have a successful negotiation. That means you've checked the other side out. You know what they want, what they are looking for, who they are, what's important to them, what's not important to them, and you're then able to use that, as you negotiate. Right. So do your homework, gather as much pertinent information prior to negotiation. What are their needs? What pressure do they feel? What options do they have? The more information you have about the people with whom you are negotiating, the stronger you will the stronger you will be. The more information you have, the stronger you will be, because you know who they are and you're able to then speak based on what you know. So that's important to know the other side. Also, it's important to know yourself because sometimes if you don't do your homework, you might just give away things that are important to you, right? You need to know the things you're willing to give and the things you're not willing to trade off, in the negotiation. You need to know your boundary conditions, right? So it's important to do your homework if you're going to win in a negotiation. The fourth tip here for winning in a negotiation is always be willing to walk away. Don't make it a do or die, right? If it's not suiting you, there's nothing wrong in walking away, right? It's either a win-win, no deal. Both of us walk away and we're still friends, right? It's that thing we say that either runs from a war, lives to fight another day. There's no use, roughing it, losing, and when really you didn't have to give up, right? It's also no use roughing it off and damaging the relationship. It's always good to stop, in a friendly uh end, without needing to leave the alter to one another. That this comes to me from a relationship standpoint. There was a dear friend of mine, was a lawyer, and she told me, and we're pretty close. I spent a lot of time visiting her, and we spent time together. Uh, and when she did get engaged, she told me, and for me then she was. I had a lot of friends like that, but she was open enough to let me know when she did get engaged, and for me, I just said, hey, you can marry all your friends, you know, and it was okay. And we ended on a good note, such that we could still be friends even after that. Some people end dirty and it's like, me, these, or hide it from one another. There was another one and I just said, hey, uh, we're still gonna be friends, you know, and when we relate with people, we need to know the things we prize. Things don't have to end dirty. It doesn't have to be a lose-lose. You don't have to have a lose-lose in any relationship. We can agree to disagree. We can agree not to be friends anymore. We can agree to separate and give a distance, but you see that it's a win-win. Oh, no deal. We go our separate ways, without any bad blood. That's important. Bad blood comes when there's ego. One person is trying to outdo the other. One person is trying to oppress the other. Like I had a recent uh fracas with someone here in the office, and today the person sees me and is not greeting and all of that because the person just has an ego issue, is wanting a situation where she could insult me, and harass me, and I should just be subservient to that. Amen. That ain't gonna work with me. You should always be willing to work away, right? We are willing to walk away. It doesn't have to end in a lose-lose. It doesn't have to end in a lose-win. It doesn't have to end in a win-lose. Protect the relationship. Let's seek for a win-win, no deal, right? So never negotiate without options. Always have options. If you depend too much on the positive outcome of a negotiation, you lose your ability to say no, right? You lose your ability to say no if you depend too much on the outcome of a negotiation. And that's why everywhere you find yourself, you need to develop options, right? Joseph in Potiphar's house would seem like he didn't have options, right? But he he knew that he had options. He had options with God. There's never an excuse to do wrong because irrespective of how tight things were. For Joseph, it was tight, he was a slave, but he prized his relationship with God more than his seeming position as a slave, and he chose to do right. Yeah, he got the punishment in the short term, but he got the elevation in the long term, right? So this it's a it, it is visible to the other negotiator just as much as your readiness to walk away is, right? Um, So whether you're ready to walk away or you don't have options, the other negotiator use it, they're going to use it against you if you don't have a boundary condition as to where to stop. So whether you're willing to walk away or not, there could be a strength or a weakness. If it's that you have no other option, then you're done for. The other negotiator will use it against you, right? So always have options. That's important when you go into a negotiation. Number five tip, to have a successful negotiation is don't be in a hurry. When you're doing a negotiation, don't be in a hurry. Hurry will say is the devil, right? I call hurry the devil. I'm never in a hurry. I can do things fast, but when you're in a hurry, there's a bit of destability that it brings your inner self. You're not able to hear from your inner self. When you're in a hurry, all that you're doing is coming from your head. You aren't getting message from your heart, right? And you're kind of destabilized. And this, for me as a Christian, this is where Isaiah 28, verse 16 comes in. It says, they that believe, the end of that verse says, they that believe will not hurry, will not be destabilized. Hurry destabilizes you. So never be in a hurry. If you don't have time for a negotiation, then don't do it. Wait till the time is right so you can get the right outcome. You can listen to the other side, you can state your own facts, and both of you can come into to the right conclusion. Your patience can be devastating to the other negotiator if they're in a hurry because they start to believe that you're not under pressure to conclude the deal. So your patience can be a strength for you, right? Your being in a hurry will surely be a weakness, right? So if they're in a hurry, they can offer concessions, to you, which in a sense is a positive, right? But if you're in a hurry, then you might offer concessions and get like the lower end of the stick, which you will regret later on. So never be in a hurry, you know, listen to the facts, consider the facts, and make the right decision. This can also come in a relationship, where people are now desperate to get married and you see red flags where you're looking the other way from the red flags because you feel that you're in a hurry to get married, only for those red flags uh to then be the terrorizing elements, while in the marriage. So never be in a hurry. Consider the facts, and be willing to walk away, right? If the negotiation is not suiting you, or what you're getting from a table is not something you can live with, right? So the sixth tip, for successful negotiation includes aim high, expect the best outcome, right? Don't go into a negotiation expecting a low and the least outcome, because what you expect you get, right? Successful negotiators negotiate negotiators are optimists. If you expect more, you'll get more. People who aim high do better. Your optimism will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you are aiming low, then you won't present the facts that can help you sell, to get the right position. And the opposing side can feel your vibe. If you're aiming low, then easy. They're going to even take it lower for you, because they see that it's like you are desperate for the result, right? If you want something, ask for it, right? The worst that can happen is they say no. The seventh tip here we'll see, for successful negotiation is they need to focus on the other side's pressure, not yours, right? You focus on where their pressure point is. That helps. If you not focus on the pressure on your side, if you focus on your pressure, then you'll be so willing to concede. But you focus on their own pressure points, right? Which the pressure point then becomes their weakness, right? You focus on their weakness, in trying to get the conclusion to the negotiation. We have a tendency to think the grass is greener on the other side, right? We have a tendency to think the grass is greener on the other side, but it's not. So don't assume that. Assume the grass is greener on your side when you're trying to negotiate. So focus on the pressure points of the other side. Focus on their weakness and use it against them, as it were, to get the conclusion of the negotiation without them losing value, obviously. Uh, when you focus on your limitations, you miss the big picture, right? So focus on the limitations of the other side of the table, not your limitations, right? Go in as if you don't have limitations, and that will work for you, right? You're in a battlefront. You don't show your limitations, even if you have some. You can do as one without limitations. It's part of the negotiating game, as it were. So successful negotiators ask, what is the pressure of the other side in this negotiation? What's their pressure? You ask, what's their pressure? What's the pressure of the other side in this negotiation, and use that. Your negotiation power derives in part from the pressure of the other person. It is your job to root out their worries, concerns, and exploit them in order to achieve a better result for yourself, right? So use the limitation of the other side on the table to get the result that you want. The eighth tip here for successful negotiation is show the other person how their needs will be met. You found out their needs, show them how their needs will be met, right? This is what Apple uses in creating what we call a cult followership. Apple emphasizes the need of their customers and goes ahead to develop uh, tools or products that will solve those needs. So people then gravitate towards it, right? They each time they anticipate what the need is in the market and create those products, So find out the needs of the other side of the table, and sell them that. They would come to you. So successful negotiators always look at the situation from the other side's perspective. This this puts them ahead of the game, right? It puts them ahead of the game because they wear the shoe of the other side of a table and they try to solve their problem or do things that will make the other side happy or gravitate towards. And that helps in solving the problem on the table, right? This obeys Steve Covey's fifth habit of highly effective people, right? Which says seek first to understand, then you'll be understood. If you understand the other side of a table, then they can understand your side also, right? But it's knowing their needs and then using that need to solve the problem on the table. You're presenting the way that need can be solved, and that helps you to come to the conclusion or solve the problem involved in a negotiation. So seek to understand the other negotiator and show them ways to feel satisfied. If you do, they'll be more inclined to help you satisfy your needs. Satisfaction means that their basic interests have been fulfilled, not their demands have been met, you know. So that's important. I go into a negotiation here on Tuesday, so I have to use all of these skills on the table also. Uh, so the night tip for successful negotiating is don't give anything away without getting something in return. That's what we say. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be too fast to concede. As you concede, make sure you're getting something for what you're conceding, even though that's what you're conceding, you already decided it's something you can give away, but don't give it away at no value, right? So unilateral concessions are self-defeating. So whenever you give something away, get something in return. Always tie a string. I'll do this if you do that. That's important if you want to have a successful negotiation. Don't give anything away for giving sake. Make sure you're getting something for what you're giving, right? And lastly, the 10th tip here for successful negotiation says, don't take the issues of the other person's behavior personally, right? Don't take anything personal in the room. Focus on the reason why you're there, right? Don't take anything personal. You're here to solve a problem. Let that be your focus, right? Successful negotiators focus on solving the problem, right? They focus on solving the problem and not get distracted by the people in the room. How can we conclude an agreement that respects the need of both parties? Everything else is a wash. You're there to solve a problem, not change a person, right? So that needs to be the focus and never get distracted from that if you want to get a successful negotiation, right? So that's important. So we've finished the negotiation part of chapter 4. Next time we'll come next week, Sunday, God willing, we'll talk about the opposite of negotiation, which is talking about persuasion, which is what the con person really does. The con person doesn't do all these things we have talked about here. They don't go through the trouble of needing to collaborate and teamwork. No, it's one-sided. They don't have to go through trying to solve a problem. All they want to do, not solve your problem, but sell you something and get something from you. They don't want you to, they want you to make a decision, all right, but not make a right decision. They want you to make an irrational decision. They couldn't be bothered about your interpersonal skills. They they do have interpersonal skills and want to use that in a way that wins them, you know. There's no ethics for them, and they don't care if you feel they're reliable or not. And when it comes to the tips, they have no problem of, be, of, of them asking you, but they would rather that you don't ask for what you want. But we'll see that more as we talk about persuasion from next week. Thanks for coming along. We end our talk here on negotiation. I still have to read from we finished reading this book through this week, and we'll then talk about persuasion. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got one thing or the other from this engagement. God bless you. See you same time next week. Enjoy the week ahead. Shalom. Bye-bye.